next one. Off we go.
Yeah, pretty much.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's surprising how quickly blades will dull on certain materials, even if you buy good quality blades. I think all the jigsaw blades I've got are Bosch. I got given a stack as wedding present. Along with the Bosch jigsaw.
That's a good wedding present.
Yeah, I was pretty lucky actually. We were pretty lucky. I got given several tools, drill bits, a jigsaw, pile of jigsaw blades, a few thousand screws. I still got some of the screws. Yeah, it's been over 20 years. Yeah,
there's a wedding joke in there that I'm not going to go for.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, and they were kind of pretty good screws too. I'm not sure they weren't Spax. What were they? I can't remember now. But they were all right screws. Yeah, I mean, the 4 mil by 40 mils went fairly quickly.
Yeah,
they always do. My favourite size screw.
4 by 40s and 4 by 50s are basically what holds theatre together. It's just like, I've got to build a flat. All right, get the 4 by 50s. Just make a frame.
Yeah, that's like everything of mine is generally it's like 4 by 40s if it's just wood stuff, and then like 5 by 50s if I want to stick it to the wall and it not fall off, and then like 5 by 70s if it's slightly dodgy when I try a 50.
Give it the pull away from the wall test. If it shifts a bit, you go bigger screw.
Is the screw going too far enough through the fence post? Do I need to actually drill a hole first, a 10 mil hole, 12 mil hole in the fence post first, and not go too far so that it's still got plenty of materials to grip onto, and then grip into whatever it is you're trying to attach to.
Because the 50s don't have the they're threaded all the way through to the head, aren't they? Whereas the 70s have usually got 20 mil of a sort of smooth shank. So yeah, sometimes you've got to just, if you know it's a bit bendy. My sort of wall with all the screens on is a piece of 18 mil ply screwed to the wall with a load of cleats on it. So my screens are all got cleats on the back, so I can move the screens around as I need to. But the top corner of the screw, when it went in, it didn't go in far enough because the wall kind of bends away. So there's like 6 screws holding this sheet of ply to the wall, and that top one, just every now and then, it just moving a little bit. So it was, take the 50 out, put the 70 in, and it's gone. That's fine. Just enough to pull the ply in.
Just that.
Yeah, I've done that.
3 turns.
The wall behind me is, I can't remember, it's 12 or 18 mil ply on top of the kind of the drywall. So it just makes fitting things up so much easier. Touching things. I mean, I still go over the top. I mean, I tend to over-engineer things. So all my the monitors that are mounted to the wall are on, I think, a bit of CLS. They're mounted to the CLS with lag bolts. The CLS is glued and screwed to the wall, to the plywood. Yeah. But I over-engineer things. It's what I do. I tend not to go for the subtle when it comes to building stuff.
I'm saying it's better to over-engineer than to under-engineer, and then you're sat there watching the telly and the screen just comes off. You're just sat there and went, "What happened to the telly? It just fell off the wall. Don't know.
Must be an ad break."
Yes, I did get told off for it when I was in industry. My first job in industry, and I had to design a jig to do some measurements, and I completely over-engineered it. And kind of one of the fitters coming around saying, "Rather a lot of material in this. Do you actually need all this?" Like, he said, "What are you trying to do?" I said, "Well, I've got to hold this ceramic cylinder at a certain height above the sort of bench, and I'm going to be applying, I can't remember what mass it is now. I'm going to be applying a mass to it, and it's going to be kind of oscillating back and forth." Yeah, we don't need all this. And they just redesigned it and kind of, here you go. Buy this material. That'll do.
Yeah, I did that with me and my boss. We're looking at doing a design for some new desks years ago, and we'd engineered a hidden a hidden joint that would allow us to make like a side panel for either side, and then the cross members would like lock in and then fix up, and it was all hidden fixings and things like that. And when we sent it away for a quote to be manufactured, the guy just sort of rang me up and went, this is going to be a little bit kind of difficult to get right the way you've done it. Can we just do what we normally do and just weld a bit of tube on, and then you just slide it on and one screw from the bottom? Yeah, that's a much better way of doing it. Why didn't we think of that?
Yeah, talk to the guys who do it all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
You sort of get into that headspace where you just get that one idea in your head and nothing. You just get blinders to any other idea, even the simplest. And then, when someone goes, "Why don't you do it like that?" You go, "Why didn't I do it like that? What? That would have saved me 3 days. I'm an idiot."
No, you got to find a way of defending it. You kind of got to go. Yes, but in that extreme edge condition of somebody weighing 300 pounds jumping onto this from 6 feet, it needs to be able to take that. It's like, but it's a deck chair. Yes, and they can be moved around easily outside.
But if the tank comes in over the garden fence,
yes, you're on the beaches in Normandy, and the tanks are approaching, and you don't want the deck chairs to get flattened.
the landing party might need something comfortable.
Or deck chair that can be turned into. What do they call? There's a name in there for the those kind of 3-legged structures that sort of you strew across beaches. Yeah, I can't remember what they're called now, but yeah, you can just turn your deck chair instantly into one of those.
Like a giant tire spike, isn't it?
No, was it? In theatre though, you always have to over-engineer chairs. It's the amount of chairs during like after a show or in the interval. There's a very timid stage manager coming up to me going, "I'm really sorry, they broke it again." And it's just like, how have they broken it this time? How have they broken that bit off? that bit never breaks. I had it Fiddler on the Roof, like in after the wedding scene, and then there's the pogrom at the wedding. One of the chorus members went, I don't know whether he'd been given a note that he wasn't vicious enough as one of the Russian soldiers, but he went for a chair, and I was brought just sticks of chair, and we're just like, "We need this for tomorrow, please." And I'm like, "Okay, let's get the dowel out and like glue it all together." There are
at least it's tomorrow and not the next act.
Yeah.
Matinee into the evening show.
There's stuff like that as well, but that's sometimes you just go, you can't have it tonight. You just here have this chair. It's not the chair though. It's like, yes, but that chair is in bits, and I've got to glue it.
Yeah,
and it will
that is not the chair either.
Yeah. You can have the chair. It's just not a chair at the moment. It's just
that leads to an interesting philosophical question, doesn't it? Yeah, if you break a chair apart, is it still a chair?
It's a concept of a chair. Or was it? Yeah.
Is it
or is it only a chair when it can support someone? Yeah.
Well, by that reckoning, then most tables are also chairs.
Well, isn't it a bit? I mean, most things are chairs, aren't they? It's a bit like everything's a hammer. Yeah. Every tool's a hammer.
Even the floor is a chair.
Yeah, every flat surface is a chair.
You could sit with your knees at a 90-degree angle, and your hips if you're in a sitting position, then it is a chair.
So yeah, if you can contort yourself into that kind of seated person shape, whichever angle you're at. I suppose it doesn't necessarily need to be 90 degrees, does it? If you've got the like bendy lounge chairs.
Yeah. Yeah, one to think about.
Philosophical cogitations.
Yeah. When is a chair not a chair? When an actor has smashed it in a fit of passion.
And it's carried off stage in a bag. That's my dad used to do a lot of guitar repairs, and he was constantly being sort of brought things like that, where bands had a fit of passion and smashed a guitar on the floor, or a fit of someone else's passion of finding a guitarist with someone else and smashing the guitar on the floor, and that kind of usual things that lead to guitars being brought to him in bin bags and things. And remember, like some of the stories he told me where he's re-glued a neck up, and the person's been like, "Oh, is that going to be okay? Is the glue going to be strong enough?" Like, trust me, the glue is stronger than the original wood. And then, sure enough, a few months later, they bring the same guitar back, and that bit of the glued neck is perfect, but the rest of the neck's now mullered because it's been, thrown off stage or something like that. It's just sort of, smashed to pieces in a different part.
Yeah, I think it's repairing things for people is disheartening when they bring it back again.
Yeah, especially if it's broken another way. Yeah. If your repair's still there, it's good.
It's when they come back and there's like, well, what you've done hasn't fixed it. It's like, well, no, what I did has fixed it, but you've now broken it there.
Yeah.
The bit I fixed, it's perfect. It's everything around it that's now bits of wood.
Yeah, I've had that happen a few times. We kind of fix things, your kids or for someone that is just like, why did it break anyway? It was perfectly strong enough before you used it as a battering ram.
Yeah, I suppose that's the distinction between things being used for their intended purpose and breaking, and then things just being ever so slightly pushed beyond their design criteria.
Yeah. So you get things like Lego, and you're kind of like, how is this piece of Lego in this shape? It's not been bitten by the dog, because that leaves a very distinctive mark. This is not a simple explanation, is it? No. Right, okay. Do I want to know? No.
It's a 2x2 piece that is almost impossible to crush, and somehow you've managed to crush it.
It's not done by human hands.
Actually, when I was out of school, one of the teachers bought me, and the kid got in a lot of trouble for it. But a kid had put the chuck key to the metal lathe, put the square head into the vise, and then just wrenched it. So this brought me it, and it's just like chuck key, and then the actual square key bit of the chuck key at a 90-degree angle. And it's just like, how did this happen? It's just like, oh, I just put it in the vise and bent it over. I didn't realize I was that strong. And it's just like, like, A, why did you have it? And B, why did you have it? Like, that's in the cupboard normally. Why was it out of the cupboard? It's like, oh, I went and got it because Jeff told me I wouldn't be able to bend it. It is like,
yeah, I've got to prove I can do something, and somebody's challenged me to.
Yeah,
that's not be followed by a teacher saying, "Would you walk off a cliff if they said to do that?"
No, sir. But if they said that you couldn't walk off a cliff, probably.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that if you walk off a cliff and don't look down, you float. It's only when you look down that you fall.
There's that physics.
Yeah.
I mean, cartoon physics does work to a certain extent with kids. You know, the amount of times a kid will become damaged and not realize it hurts until you go, ow, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't register as pain until someone acknowledges that they've hurt themselves.
So, the facial reaction from the parents tells them how they should be feeling. So, what emotion should I be? Oh, that's not a good face. Okay. That's why my leg's the wrong way round. Oh, this is pain.
Oh, my knee bends the other way now.
Oh.
Oh, what's it? What's this white stuff inside me? Oh yeah. Oh, bone. Oh,
Oh no. That shouldn't be. This actually segues on to one of the talks I saw at EMF. It was a radiologist who gave a talk about is that normal? So it was explaining how radiologists, like, there's a reason why a radiologist won't tell you how bad it is, because most of the time, like when x-raying children, because all the growth plates are made of cartilage, they don't show up on x-ray. And so, like, from the photo, it's just like, there's a bone, there's a big line through the bone of like darkness that looks like a break, then there's some more bone. So the parents freak out and go, oh, little Susie, she's broken both her knees. And it's just like, you shouldn't, if you don't look at the x-ray, like the doctor knows that that's a growth plate and that everything is fine and that she's just sprained her ankle. But to a parent, it's the end of the world and both her legs are going to have to be amputated.
Yeah.
She'll never play tap dance again.
I used to work with a guy who trained as a radiographer, and he had some interesting stories about things he'd had to X-ray, shall we say, normally involving insertion.
Yes.
You mean trips and falls?
Yes, but how one can trip and fall on a stem of a daffodil
without trousers on.
Without trousers on, yes, and get the daffodil several centimeters into, I
did learn one thing from that talk though, is like the last image we saw was like, we're given the whole warning, like, this is graphic because we played the game. Is that normal? And so it's just like break scrapes, and then it was like bonus round insertion. Is this? And he saw like the normal ones, like man who's put a nail gun, a cleated nail gun nail through his hand. It's like, is that normal? What's the problem? And it's like, you've nailed your hand to a bit of wood. And then the final image was a vibrator, but the vibrator had managed to get to the other side, like go backwards through the colon, and was literally gone up over and was in the other side. Because
I mean, they're not self-guiding, you know.
I'm guessing, I don't have a huge amount of experience with this, but I have made the kind of brush. You stick a counterweight motor. Brush bot. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, made brush bots. And brush bots will move along. Now, obviously, there's an element there of the brush has sort of an effect, but they do progress. I mean, is it just the rotary motion resulting in linear motion through the intestine?
It's actually it's your fear response.
Oh, of course.
Oh,
so your fear response basically reverses your digestive tract. So that,
unless you're one of those people whose fear response works in the other direction.
Yeah. But it's just like it's why it's why the term scared shitless is a term. It's basically because your entire colon just reverses direction, so it just stays inside you. And this guy had waited, I think it was 48 hours before he'd gone into the hospital, because he was just like, basically his words were, "I thought it might work its way out." I thought it might work its way out, but it didn't. It went the opposite direction.
So many questions. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
but was it on?
Yeah, the battery life.
How long did the batteries last?
What brand of batteries was he using?
Duracell Optimum.
Fresh set, yeah.
Oh, the packaging of those new batteries really infuriates me.
I haven't bought anything other than the power cell or pro cell.
Pro cells.
Yeah, I haven't bought anything other than those for a long time. Just
No, I
because
saw them.
Cardboard box.
I saw them at the checkout the other day, and it's a box that looks like it can hold 12 batteries, but there's 4 in it.
Ah,
It's just like Duracell Optimum, contents 4, and it's just like, but why is the box so big for 4 batteries? It's just like a iPhone matte black box with the copper top and like the bunny in the corner. There's no like detailed description of how amazing these batteries are and how much. It's just like,
well, surely that's just reflected in the price tag.
Yeah. big box, big price tag.
There's a whole subreddit dedicated to asshole design, and you always see those kind of things of where you've got like a big pot of some like cosmetic product or something, and then you take the lid off and it looks full, and then they take like an insert out, and it's a tenth of the height of the tub, or things like that.
Yeah,
or when you've got like food packaging where it's got like the big label across the middle with a little tiny window on one half, and then you take the cover off and it's all just on that half.
Yeah.
That's very frustrating. I mean, you get the things like, I mean, it's understandable with certain food products, like certain cereals, because when they're at the factory, they will fill more of the packet. And then they settle in transport, on the road, been checking along, but like what we talked about earlier. It's going to settle. Yeah, that's just rheology. Yeah, it's just one of those things. So you kind of expect a certain gap, but then sometimes you kind of open a packet something, and it's less than halfway, and you think, no, that's not just settling. Yeah, this is just
this is creative marketing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one way of putting it. A polite way of putting it. Yeah, it's creative marketing.
Yeah, well, it's because everything is still, although it's not, everything is priced as a bar of chocolate. Everything is still technically sold by weight.
Yeah,
it's why like at the supermarket you've got the little at the bottom. It's just like 30 pence per 100 grams.
Yeah,
but everyone goes, "Oh, the chocolate bars are getting smaller." It's like, well, no, they're still. They've kept the same price. You just get less chocolate per that price.
Yeah.
It's the shrinkification.
Yeah. Except Freddo's, but that's.
I mean, that's a whole millennial argument, that isn't it?
I think the Freddo inflation chart.
Yeah.
I've actually
growing up too. I can remember when I was small. My favourite kind of confection was a curly whirly, and I could never eat an entire curly whirly in one go. So I'd have half, the packet would be closed up, and left the other half the next day, and that was great. But now you're an adult, it's like, okay, yeah, I've had the curly whirly, and can I have another 3, please? Because I don't feel satisfied. But there's that element of I'm no longer, 2.5 feet tall, 3 feet tall.
Yeah,
I'm, double that maybe and a bit. Yeah, sure. Not because you two.
No, it's become my new thing. Like because my dad's a decorator, he's taught me like how to properly hang wallpaper and the art of like what you write in pencil behind the wallpaper, and stuff. So he'll normally his thing is like left hand side of the center line of the room. He'll put his name, or on the behind where the door opens is another place he puts his name. So like on the bit of wall, just in case, because actually it was my fault because I used permanent marker. But do you remember? Is it Fido Dido, the like 7-Up mascot from the 90s? It was like the weird. He's like a pencil drawing character, like cartoon character, with like 3 strands of hair. And basically, I drew that on the wall in Sharpie as a child, and my dad redecorated the room. And then, like a month later, this ethereal like Fido Dido bled through the wallpaper, and my mum was just like, that you drew that, and I was like, yeah, I remember drawing that in the 90s. And she was like, yes, it's returned. And now there's a picture frame over it. It's just like, just put a picture over that section and just take that as a lesson. But it's now I've started, like, when I've decorated a room, I'll do like next to the center line of the room, I do like a little time capsule. So it's like do the date, and part of my time capsule is like a couple of news headlines, and then the price of a Freddo at the time. And I've got like a little chart. It's like news headlines. Freddo index, 25 pence. I just like the idea of in like 40 years, like when I've moved out of the house and someone else is redecorating a room and they scrape the wallpaper off and they just find this thing and be like, well, the first question would probably be, what's a Freddo?
Yeah. Or, oh my God, do you remember that whole thing about the Freddo wars in the early 2020s?
I think quite funny. We've had a couple of houses where we've had to, they've been in kind of poor state when we've taken them on, and you kind of pull up the carpets, and underneath the carpets you find the absolutely decayed underlay
newspaper,
and underneath that you find newspaper. It's like, so now we know exactly when this newspaper was put down, roughly when this newspaper was put down. And it's like looking at things, it's like, oh look, you can buy a computer that runs at 1 gigahertz, and you get 300 gigabytes of hard drive space, and you get a full kind of 5 megabytes of RAM for £3,000.
Fly to Spain for £2.
Yeah. Buy a brand new Ford Escort for £7,000. Yeah, things like that.
I suppose we should explain the Freddos for any of our international listeners or anyone over or under the millennial age kind of thing. The Freddos are a Cadbury brand chocolate bar. It's sort of aimed at kids. And when Dom and I were kids, they were 10 pence each.
Yep.
And they're now up to 25 pence each. For
they're
the same
shaped,
thing.
aren't they? They're frog shaped.
They are
yes.
frog shaped, yeah.
It's Freddo the Frog. Sometimes they are 40 pence if you go to a dodgy corner shop where they've
the wrong shop.
they've sharpied off the RRP price. Yeah. And then stuck
do you remember
on
the Taz bars that they did? Because you used to get Freddo that was solid chocolate, and then Taz, which were chocolate caramel.
That were caramel.
And then they dropped the Taz bars and just became Freddos and then Freddo caramels, and then they hiked the prices up.
Yeah. It's like the Iron Brew bars.
Oh, the like the refresher style, the chewy ones.
Yeah. They were Iron Brew flavour. I miss those. And they won't bring them back.
There's literally like that, though, isn't it?
There's probably
Cadbury's Marble and all these other things that were like fantastic things that have just gone to oblivion. Spyro, I think, was another one that was rumoured to be coming back. And
I got so excited when I saw the limited edition trio bars. I bought 3 packets. I was just like, oh my God, I'm buying them all. And I was like, a friend at the time who isn't a millennial is just like, why are you getting so excited over a chocolate bar? And it's just like, you just don't understand.
You weren't there, man. You weren't there.
Then proceeded
because they discontinued the Milky Way crispy rolls recently, didn't they?
Oh,
Sad times.
sad. No.
It's interesting to see how chocolate's changed. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm old enough to remember, the marathon bar. Yeah. Can't get marathon bars anymore.
Well, they just called them Snickers.
Yeah.
Renamed them.
Yeah, as you said, they did a limited run at one point. I want to say maybe last year, where they briefly brought them back as marathon.
Oh, really?
As like a special edition type thing, because they're just reprinting the labels essentially.
Yeah. I think it was probably it's like however many years since Snickers came out or whatever, or marathon. So they were just like, remember this nostalgia kick?
Yeah.
Yeah, is that we used to get as a kid? We used to get the sort of multi-pack of chocolate at Christmas. You get this big packet.
Yeah.
It'd be like the curly whirly. There'd be a topic. There would be
fudge.
A finger. There'd be a variety of these sort of things. And it's just like this huge packet, and you kind of open it up, and the like less than half the available space was used.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you've got like a big
It's
thing.
going to be a lot smaller, and now I feel disappointed because there's only 4 chocolate bars in here or 5 chocolate bars in here, and there's room for 12.
Mm-hmm.
And creative marketing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if you do it in the shape of like a big, Christmas stocking, and then you just kind of pad them out with an inch or 2 gap around each one, and make it all all super pretty, and put some graphics in.
A bit of vacuum forming.
Yeah. It makes the difference, from just wrapping it all in gaffer tape and just scribbling someone's name on it and chucking it at them.
Tinfoil gaffer tape. You've got to do the layers. It's the tinfoil, then gaffer tape, then tinfoil, then gaffer tape.
A layer of cling film in there somewhere.
Yeah. And then you just play music behind them while they're. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, if the music stops, you've got to hand it over to someone else.
I've seen a few where people have gone completely over the top with things like that, and they've kind of there's been underneath the wrapping paper. There's been 1/4-inch plate steel all welded in one continuous seam. Or it's a bottle, and it's TIG welded chain around the top of the bottle, so there's no way of getting into it without a grinder.
I did see there was one on Reddit a couple of years ago where someone had they bought, I think it was one of their siblings, they bought them an angle grinder, and then they basically just steel welded everything around the box, so they needed the grinder to actually cut the grinder out of the grinder box.
I got you exactly what you wanted, and now you have to use it to get what you need.
Yeah. Well, it's like, when you buy new scissors, and you've got to use scissors to cut the packaging to get out the scissors.
Supposedly, some tin openers, those really hard plastic, those PET plastic things, some can openers apparently will open those quite nicely. I've heard the same, but not tried any luck. Tend to use. I've got some trauma shears. They work quite nicely.
Actually, quite like to get the Leatherman do a really nice pair of trauma shears.
They do.
Like my boss at the opera has them. He's just like, because he loves like multi-tool type knives. So his current thing, and he gave me one because he was just like, I bought you this. Just handed me it. It's a really nice like Japanese pruning knife, but it's it's like a 2-inch tiny blade that you can use like opening boxes and stuff, and it just folds out. But it's a hand forged like Japanese steel knife.
Nice.
And it's so nice, and it's just one of those like really nice aesthetic things to hold and be like, I really like this.
It's a healthy fidget toy.
Just this really nice, because all it, like the sheath, because it's a folding knife, it doesn't lock. It's got like a little tang that you can push on to open the knife one-handed,
Mm.
and the handle is literally just like a folded piece of sheet steel, and the blade is just riveted onto it. It's just like
Nice.
it's like the most. It's a fold like the basic folding knife. It's just like just like answers the brief of just like this is a folding knife because the blade folds in the handle, but it's not engineered with like opal handles and a button that open.
I've got a vague memory of Steve making something like that for his dad. I'm thinking at the time, I was like, "Oh, I want one of those." They look really just utilitarian and very simple.
Yeah.
No faff. Just they do exactly what they say on the tin.
Yeah.
To quote Ronso.
I like the open L knives for that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're locking, which kind of potentially poses issues depending on where and when you carry it or use it. Technically, they're locking, but
I think if you buy them in the UK from like a surplus store or like from a camping shop, they will generally only sell you a non-locking one because they just pop off the
okay,
lock
I didn't know that.
sometimes. If you buy them on Amazon, you just get a standard open L knife. Because I've got.
Makes sense.
They're nice. They're cheap.
Yeah.
Like they'll keep an edge for a while. They'll keep an edge for a good while, and they sharpen really easily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I found that the tips are never. Because I've got to buy a new one because I broke the like 5 mil off the tip of my blade.
Regrind it so it's a shorter, but back to the right shape.
That's it. I mean, there's nothing. There's hardly anything to them. There's nothing complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember having a conversation once with a combat survival instructor from a certain regiment, who basically said, we were talking about gear. We were talking about kind of and very much talking about kind of things like it's not the gear you have, it's knowing how to use it or how to make it. Even it's more important. But he was extolling the virtues of some of the much cheaper gear that was around. And like knives, my favorite knife is just a standard Opinel number 6 carbon steel blade.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's not. It can rust because it's carbon steel rather than the stainless steel, but you can sharpen it on anything.
Yeah,
you really can just sharpen it on anything. There's nothing to go wrong. Yeah, it's a perfect knife in many respects. Yeah, if you know how to use it, you can. You're not going to cut an oak tree down with one.
No.
You can, if you know what you're doing, you can split wood, you can shave, you can make feather sticks for lighting a fire, you can gut an animal with it. You can. It's just as a small pocket knife. It's dirt cheap, so you don't worry about losing it.
Yeah.
I mean, you sometimes see, particularly like with kind of people who join the forces, and maybe they're in a regiment where they're allowed to kind of buy some of their own kit, and they've got Gucci kit. They spend 250 quid on a pair of Dana boots, and they've got kind of all the best rucksack. They've got a £300 rucksack and a knife that's cost them a month's wages. It's just like, what happens the first time that you're then stuck in an environment where that's going to get shredded, or you're going to lose that? You're just going to go.
Yeah, you've got to dig a toilet with it.
Yeah. You want stuff that's good. Boots. You want comfortable boots, but you also want stuff that are going to just work. You want a good rucksack. You need to be able to let you carry weight easily, but you also want something that if it gets trashed because it gets dropped down a cliff face, you're not kind of going, my rucksack.
No, it's a boot. The only sort of boots I'll sort of say, I've found a nice brand of steel toe cap boots now. That like I've gone through the Waltz, just the toes that just delaminates. I find.
Yeah.
From the toe, it's just like, and you can't glue them back. Like I've tried like the insane contact adhesive I have at work, it doesn't work.
Just rivet it back on.
We're getting back to the screws now, aren't we? Yeah. That's where you want a 7x70, yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it's just like, I also think it's buying, because I used to tour around a lot. It's buying stuff, like finding stuff that you can get hold of easily. So like, if my boots die a death on a get out, like this, I have had it once where a steel toe cap insert fell out of my boot at the end of the get out. It's just like, I need new boots because this boot has just died. Good thing we've just shut the truck and sent it away. Goodbye. But yeah, it's having that, so you don't have to go to like the bespoke brand shop to buy your safety boots. You just walk into Screwfix or any boot shop, and it's like, I was going to say, like, it's like the Vimes, Terry Pratchett's Vimes thing. It's just like, don't buy the really dirt cheap boots. Like, buy the mid range. I've always found, because they
I think that's good. That's good advice for a lot of things. I was listening to an Adam Savage, one of his, on tested.com. They on YouTube. They stick out kind of excerpts from kind of his sort of Ask Me Anything type live things he does I think he does them about once a month or once a couple of months. And I was watching one just early today, and it was the same sort of I've heard him say a couple of times, where he's talking about kind of tools, and whether you should buy a tool or whether you should mark the tools that you have. He was talking about kind of marking his tools, so that if he was kind of in a shared shop, people would know what was his, etc. Maybe something. He said, if I use anything more than once a year, I will buy the tool. If I'm only going to use it once, I might try and borrow it. But if I'm going to use it more than once, I will try and buy the tool. And as what you'll often try and do is kind of go, I'll buy the cheapest tool that will do the job. But if I then find that maybe that breaks, or I'm using it more often, I will then buy the most expensive tool that I can afford to do the job.
Yeah.
So I've actually got something, and I think it's great advice, but there is I think there's a caveat that sometimes needs to go with that, because you often get, like, on Facebook groups, people going, what tool should I buy, and what drill driver should I buy, and like there'll be 300 comments ranging from buy the Festool, or you should only buy DeWalt or Makita, or there'll be somebody going, just
buy the one that's either in the your favorite color or in the battery system you already got. That's it.
Yeah, and there'll be a dozen people saying, only buy the blue ones. There'll be a dozen people saying, only buy the yellow ones, because the blue ones are all rubbish. And because the ones say buy yellow are saying the blue ones are rubbish, the blue ones are saying the yellow are rubbish. It's just like, hey,
guys in the sunglasses saying buy the red ones.
Yeah. But I think there can be a danger sometimes with certain tools. If you do buy the cheapest, it might, and you're just starting out, that it can maybe put you off doing something further. And I think a prime example of that might be if you decide you want to get into, say, carving. If you buy the absolute cheapest carving tools, if you don't know how to sharpen anything, you're going to have a bad time, and you're not necessarily going to enjoy it. You might be better off buying one, instead of buying a set of tools, just buy one reasonable or good knife for the same amount of money, and get used to using that, or find something that maybe is. I mean, I particularly for carving, particularly for detailed stuff, I swear by scalpels and X-Acto knives. The blades do break, but the blades are so cheap, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. You do have to be careful because the blades break, and that you are at risk of putting blades into fingers. I think anyone that uses scalpels and X-Acto knives regularly probably has scars on their fingers. I've got a few from where that happens. But yeah, that's a risk doing any sharp instruments.
Yeah.
But I think you get a better experience for carving if you accept that risk than if you buy something that's really cheap. If you just want to have a go. So I think
I think it's context, though, isn't it? You know, if you it's the vector you approach the problem from, because it's the same thing. You know, we've said before about like driving. If your first car has all of the safety features and all of the bells and whistles, you don't necessarily know how to control a car that doesn't have those.
Yeah.
But by the same token, you know, if your car has none of those safety features, if you don't know how to actually operate the car properly, it's not going to do you any good. And it's the same with the tools. You know, if you get the really cheap crap stuff and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to have a bad time. If you get the really expensive stuff and you don't know what you're doing, you're also going to have a bad time. You know, if you go in with some prior knowledge and then you get the expensive stuff, it'll probably last you a lot longer and you'll have a better time. You're less likely to get frustrated by it. It's the same, you know, like people have said the same thing about computers. You know, if you're getting someone into computers for the first time, don't give them your 10-year-old hand-me-down, you know, just about runs anything thing, because then it's not going to be of any real use for them.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? It's that how you as a person are when you approach the problem. Is it something that you've got transferable skills from? Is it something that you can pick up and self-learn with, or is it something you're going into completely and utterly blind and relying on someone else's teachings?
Yeah,
it's the same. You know, like learning woodworking at college, and they go and buy all the, you know, the cheapest, crappiest roof slats for working on to try and do fine joinery and carpentry, and then they're trying to do dovetails with blunt saws and really shit wood, and they're wondering why there's a load of dropouts. You know, it's things like that. It's context of the thing you're doing. Whereas someone who's done carving before and knows how to sharpen the tools can then get away with buying cheap crap for a project, or they might be in a position to buy expensive or better tools for the job.
I think it's like was when I worked at a school as a technician. It was teaching the kids how to do basic joints, but then not having the right tools for it. You have the kids that would be like, but this isn't the right tool for it, and it's like, but we don't have the tenon saw. We only have these coping saws. And then there's the kid who thinks the coping saw is a guitar. There's things like that. It's just different things with, as you said, it's that whole take it, like, if you're given the wrong tool to do the job and then chastised because you haven't done a good job of it, it's an instant negative feedback.
Yeah, the association is terrible.
Yeah. And you then go, well, I'm shit at this. I'm not gonna continue it. But if, as you said with Adam's comment about, I think he'll when you said he buys the cheapest first, and he's like, I think it's like, if he then uses it for, if he uses it for more than 5 years, or it breaks, then he goes, yes, I'm going to definitely upgrade that, because he's realized that it's his. It's like, I've gone to that tool every day and I've worn it out.
Yeah,
I need a new one. I'm going to now invest because I know I'm going to use it.
Yeah, he's got the experience as well, isn't he? He's got the experience to also recognize when the cheapest tool isn't probably going to be up to the job for the thing he wants to do with it.
Yeah,
it's anything, isn't it? Really, experience helps.
It's like for anything. It's like cheapest, you can break it down to like what different types of tools, because like hammer, you can get away with the cheapest hammer you can buy.
Yeah.
Like
It's
go down.
It's a heavy lump on a stick, isn't it? Basically.
Yeah. It's just like I have too many hammers now.
I mean, you're
Really?
professionally allowed to.
Yeah. Well, it's like I had a friend's dad who passed who'd like collected tools, and it was one of those moments where I was just like, do you want to come and like pick through? We're selling them, but we're friends, so do you want to come and just pick up a few things? So I got some really nice hammers, and I then like think I found like I've spent years looking for like my perfect hammer for just like general carpentry stuff, like right size head for like hammering, the right length handle, and like I think I was just going through this box, and it was just like it's I don't know, it's like that Excalibur moment. I just sort of picked up this hammer and was just like, I think this is it. This is the hammer. Yeah, it's like because there's like where I study blacksmithing, the way you measure, one of the ways you measure your hammer is you hold your arm down by your side and put the head of the hammer in like a curled hand, and it should reach to just there on your elbow. This might just be for blacksmithing hammers, but I saw like that the hammer I found was that length, and it was just like this antique hammer this is probably the only one of it. This is the hammer. I have been chosen. Although in the same collection, though, I did also find a hammer with an adjustable head, it's got like a little button on it, and the hammer has 3 different positions. So it can either be like straight hammer, or it can have it so the head is pointing down, or the head is pointing up. And I found them for sale on eBay, so they were like a mass-produced thing, but I can't find any documentation about this hammer, and it's just like, is it for like hammering at weird angle hammering, or like is it specifically for the claw, so you've got a different leverage on the claw? But it's just a weird hammer, and it just
maybe like when you hit the nail and the nail bends, so you've got to adjust the hammerhead to compensate for the bent nail.
This is where you need 2 accounts on Reddit. So you post a picture of it on Reddit with your main account. Then you go onto your second account and you write a completely wrong answer.
And hope that
there'll definitely be somebody that will come in then and write the correct answer in.
Because, I mean, there's an entire Makers Waffle WhatsApp group that you can pull wrong answers from as well.
Is that when you have the third account to then agree with the wrong answer?
Yeah, just to get the steamrolling. Yeah,
just to goad the person to be like, well, actually, you're all wrong. This is why.
But I think you're right. I mean, hammers. It doesn't matter how much. To a certain extent. Yeah, if you're a professional framer, sticking out first fix carpentry, you probably do want to spend 70 quid on a hammer that's going to be nice and ergonomic. Has just the right weight, so it sticks a 4-inch nail in one hit. That's got anti-vibration feature in it, so you're not getting kind of issues with tendonitis or the like in your arm. But most people it isn't the case. I think saws though. I think saws are always worth spending a bit more money on. Cheap saws, I think, are dangerous.
I very like when I left university, my tutor had got me on to Japanese pull saws, so I sort of I changed my hand saw collection is basically Japanese pull saws, mainly because it was easier to travel like from gig to gig with them, because you tap the blade out, the blade can go in a little pouch, and then the saw handle just goes in the rucksack, and you can get on the tube with your big bag of tools, rather than have like the Irwin £5 supercut from B&Q, just like flapping on the side with its cardboard, like half a cardboard sheath where it's all worn off.
Yeah, ripped through and yeah.
I think screwdrivers, I think, spend a bit of money on but also don't go out and buy a full set. Look at this. Look at the screws you look at the screws you use or you want to use. Like, if you want to take apart a games like a Nintendo Game Boy or whatever, it's like, find the screwdriver that you need for that, but then buy not the cheapest one on eBay, because they're normally made out of pot metal and they'll strip.
If I think screwdriver, I think I'd say kind of buy a bit driver set from Aldi to start with.
Yeah.
And if there's a particular bit that you're always using or wearing out, then buy a wearer or a Stanley or some other
Weeha or a proper one.
Yeah,
I do the same with drill bits. I've got a Silverline index that mates of mine gave me, and every time, because of course you always end up breaking the small bits. Every time one of those breaks, I just replace it with I'll buy an individual drill bit of a better quality one. So you're just slowly replacing all the most frequently used drill bits in the index.
Yeah, I think it is also finding those, because you'll know very quickly. Like in theatre, we use a lot of like everything is held together with either M8, M10, or M12, unless it's a specific engineered thing, like a giant moving truck or something that's been engineered by a big, like something sort of like the stage floor for a Cirque du Soleil show that's built by like Stage Technologies or Delstar. That's been engineered to be like a big lift or stuff. So it's gone through all the computer CAD simulation to go, no, we need the M14 bolt because we know that when it's doing this movement that the shear load on that one bolt is 4 tons. So we know it needs to be big enough. But yeah, for everything else, like pretty much everything is in theatre is held together. If it's like flattage and stuff, is M10 bolts or steel deck.
I mean, we're getting an hour into it. It's almost time for introductions. But for those who don't know you, your main job is working at theatre.
Yes,
what would your title be?
My title is currently changing because I'm building more stuff for them now. I am soon to be head of stage and workshop. I'm currently just head of stage, but where I've joined the company and I've come from a scenic construction background, we're now doing a lot more in-house construction rather than farming it out. So it's sort of the theatre is trying to build we have a small workshop on site. We're trying to sort of build it out for smaller productions, being able to offer that as a service.
Okay. Yep.
For more theatre, like for the smaller touring venue stuff, because it's quite a small workshop, but built some cool stuff there. Yeah,
So what sort of things are you kind of responsible for making?
So I started there January 15th. I didn't start in 2020. I've worked on and off at that venue since 2013, like as a freelancer, either a stage crew or a flyman or a scenic carpenter on some of their smaller shows. But in January 2020, I became the interim head of stage because I was there building their Panto set for the 2019 season, and happened to be there when the head of stage, was just like, I became really good friends with the head of production, who says, "Oh, my head of stage is leaving," and I sort of just went, "I'll do it." And and then the conversation sort of was just like, "Really?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I think I can do it." Like, and then applied, like, was interim, so that was going to end in April of 2020, and so I then applied for the full-time position, but then 2020 happened, so it was sort of like half of the thing. Like, we got halfway through the second, like, receiving dance show we had there, and then everything went sideways, and I was then sort of at home drawing up shows that we were sitting there going, well, if theatre comes back in 3 weeks, which it's not coming back in 3 weeks, we all know that. So yeah, and then I got offered the job, like, as my contract ran out as the interim, and then didn't start until September. It was like, you've got the job, but we can't give you a start date, so
Yeah.
hold on. Okay. But yeah, so I then, in September of 2020, started there full time, but mainly it was just house. Like, for the first 6 months, I was just doing housekeeping and getting everything ready for when staff came back. Then the first show we started building was in January 2021, which then got postponed until May because of the January lockdown. But then they then built. So I built 4 shows last year for them, and then I'm currently drawing up the next 2 shows at the moment for the venue.
Nice.
So what? So would you be building, like, the sort of flats to create this sort of this structure of the scenery around and props?
I was thinking which, because I think I'm just trying to think which show. So yeah, so it's all so like Shining City. It was a 3-walled room with a couple of side rooms and a ceiling piece to make this single bedroom, like single room flat for this play set in Ireland. It was like, look disheveled, but yeah, that was all made from on edge timber flats, and on edge, I suppose, on edge and on face. So if you look at a piece of 3x1 timber for flattage, on edge is basically your cladding material is glued onto the 1-inch edge of the timber.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's a very quick way of building flattage, because all you have to do is you cut the frame out, you cut the timber to the frame. So you do and we, like, the way I was taught to build flats, your top and bottom runner rail are longer than the stiles of the flat, so that the timber. So if you're running the flat, like running the flat along the floor, you don't run the risk of chipping the rails of the timber, and then everything inside is then smaller than the bottom rail. So you have like 2 top and bottom rail that will be 1 length, and then every middle rail will be the length of the top and bottom rail minus the 19 millimeters either side, 19, 22, depending on what timber you go for. So, but on face is on edge is you build your flat and you can just screw the frame together.
Yeah.
Whereas on face, because in theatre we use like 70 by 22 a lot for flattage. An on face flat, to do a 70, like to do on face, you either have to mortise it or use a wiggle pin or a corrugated
wiggle pin.
fastener. Wiggle pin.
Yeah.
Corrugated fastener. It's
Yeah.
in theatre they I don't know why they're called wiggle pin. It's probably because they're wiggly.
Because of wiggly shaped, yeah.
So
No,
a wiggle pin.
Know about corrugated fasteners. I've seen a fair few times, but
And then
a wiggly pin.
You then use a wiggle corrugated fastener gun, just a pneumatic corrugated fastener, which still scare me.
Well, they're reasonably wide fasteners, aren't they? For
it's
overlapping two pieces of wood.
It's a tiny guillotine device that's just.
Well, see, I mean, if you accidentally, I mean, we're almost going first full circle back to kind of chat from EMF. If you accidentally stick a nail gun in line with an appendage and pull the trigger, you generally, depending on what you're firing in, you can generally remove said finger and the hole, and it will bleed. But you might cause some damage depending on particular what it hits. Yeah, if you get into the joint or something,
you give yourself an unexpected piercing.
Yeah, but it's not something that you're not likely to lose your finger.
Yes, corrugated.
Yeah. Oh.
It's one of those tools. It's one of those tools where it's just like I don't mind using it, but every time I use it, it's just like there's a mental safety checklist. It's just like, where are my hands? Where where is every other appendage of mine? It's just like
I got this mental image of you holding the gun in one hand and holding the piece of wood in the other, and then asking yourself, "Where are my hands?" Just like, oh, there they are.
Of course, the next thing I'm thinking about is many people know that there are techniques for being able to fire a pneumatic nailer without being in contact with a material, which normally has a safety interlock. I'm just wondering now if there's a safety way of what would happen if you fired a wiggle pin gun without the interlock in place.
I couldn't say.
Yes, you couldn't say.
I couldn't say.
I can imagine you couldn't say yes. Because, of course, it's never happened. It's never happened. Safety is so important and absolutely we'll leave it at that. Yeah.
But it's one of those a wiggle pin gun. They have like it's one of those nail guns where there's recoil, like a pneumatic gun where there is a small amount of recoil, and it's just like you just keep your hands away because every so often, like you pull the trigger and the gun bounces back a little bit, but far enough for it to reset the trigger. So when you push down again, it fires. So you'll be like bang, 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 bang. I
was just going to ask, do they have double fire like some pin guns do?
They do. It's like my Hikoki first fix nail gun. That has a button that you can turn on bump fire.
Bump fire,
but it's one of those things. It's just like at least that I have to physically go press the button. Now the blue LED is blinking. I can now bump fire this. It's not just I can't just sit there and be like, and there's a 90 millimeter nail, and there's another one.
I do like my nailer. I wish I only bought a pneumatic nailer. I bought a compressor and pneumatic nailer about 5 or 6 years ago, and I wish I'd bought one so much earlier. They're such good tools.
I must admit, when you need one, they are so good.
I'd like to get a pin nailer, kind of something a bit finer. I can't remember the gauges. I think mine.
24 is pin nail size.
Yeah, I think I've got an 18 gauge. 18 gauge.
Second fix 18 gauge.
Yeah. I've got an 18 gauge.
That's what I've got.
Which is fine for doing a lot of stuff. The fence panel needs a bit of refitting. Because it needs shortening, or one of the supports has come through. Yeah, it's perfect for that.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to do something a bit finer, and I just want something. I want a tiny hole. Yeah, I don't want.
24 gauge is the next size down.
Yeah.
Down.
It's on the wish list.
Yeah.
I've got. That's another. I bought myself the Ryobi one, the 18 gauge nailer.
I've got the AG equivalent.
Yeah.
Basically the same tool.
And then I bought the blue battery adapter. I think there was the funny photo I sent in the Waffle group, WhatsApp group, where it was just like I just got a bit of white gaffer tape and then painstakingly copied the Makita. The Makita. It's just like, look at my new Makita staple gun, and everyone's just like, why is it green? It's like, no reason. It's definitely
special edition.
Special edition. It's from Japan.
Camera color filter's a bit off. That's why it's
yeah. Still seasick.
It's one of those tools that, like, I could have spent the money and bought the Makita version, but the Ryobi version is just as good. And it's one of those things that's like, I'll keep using it until it dies, and then I'll probably either upgrade or go to a different.
And that is a good tool tip actually for people who are looking for, if they're in a particular orange or not orange or yellow or teal or whichever brand of expensive tool you kind of in the ecosystem of. There is a company called Budapter that do a range of. They've got like DeWalt, Bosch, AG and Rigid, Makita, to
Milwaukee,
Ryobi, and Milwaukee as well, to the Ryobi adapters. So you can use your existing tool brand batteries, but on the Ryobi tools, because Ryobi tools tend to be priced lower. So if it is something that you're thinking about, maybe picking up something that you can save yourself £100 or something, compared to your preferred brand's coloured option.
I also think like Ryobi tend to do weird things as well.
Yeah.
They tend to come out with like, we decided to stick a battery on this thing that doesn't need a battery, but we're trying it. Yeah, and you actually look at it and go, actually, I would find a use for that.
They do an inverter.
Yeah.
It's just a single plug, UK plug inverter that goes on the 18-volt battery. But it's like 200 watts or something like that. So it's not really for anything. Yeah, it's ideal for something like that. It's like £50. It's ridiculous. It's just the amount of like you say, just really obscure things you wouldn't expect them to just stick a battery on.
Yeah. But yeah, it's that thing. It's just like, I think we. I was trying to think. There was another. It's sort of like DVD region lock. It's just like the tool companies have essentially region locked their tools, but
it's a tool snobbery lock.
Yeah. And they all work off the same I said every single battery contains 18650 cells.
And all of the patents are Milwaukee, so they all have to license the tool patent from Milwaukee anyway. So why don't they just all use the same connection system?
Well, there are a couple of manufacturers. There's a few manufacturers that do, don't they? Metabo are part of, what do they call it?
It's Hikoki. Hikoki, Metabo, and Hitachi are all kind of part of that.
I can remember seeing kind of an advert. I think it was probably on to my FFX, where it was kind of the Metabo battery will fit obviously all the Metabo range, but it will also fit all. I think there were about 3 or 4 other kind of brands. They were mostly they were not the kind of everyday. I mean, most people know Makita, DeWalt, Ryobi. A few people then will know things like Milwaukee,
Caslo.
and they'll know some of the other ones. But then there's all those kind of other brands. Yeah, not many people will know Metabo unless they're in the trade. And there's a few other brands like that are similar, where it's kind of like, yeah, you're mostly aimed at the trade market. So then you're not on the first. Yeah, there's that board game. It's kind of name 5, and if you kind of name 5 tool brands, most people are going to go Makita, DeWalt, Ryobi, Black and Decker, and I don't know,
Stanley,
or Triton,
or Works.
Well, not necessarily Triton necessarily, but yeah, they'll name kind of maybe some of the older brands, the more established brands, the names that have been around for a long time. But they won't necessarily get the kind of maybe some of the European brands like Metabo,
Festool. Well, there are a lot of
yeah.
It's like, as you say, it is sort of partly region locked as well, because Festool, a German company, is just like, it's sort of, I first heard about it through theatre because of their rail saw. Like having something on stage that you can place and cut a perfectly straight line to put a track in or something, and then from that they've designed the router attachment so you can then router a track rather than having to cut 2 lines and get perfectly parallel lines. But it's then like a friend of mine started coming in with like his Panasonic tools.
Yeah.
It was just like
IP65 rated Panasonic tools and stuff.
Yeah. And it's just like, have you seen this tool I bought? It's a circular saw for metal. It's just like, what? I want one. What would you use it for? Cutting metal, obviously.
I think it's an awful lot of tools that people don't know about.
Yeah.
Unless you're a real sort of tool geek, and you kind of spend your time just sort of going through catalogs of just tools, and not just your screw fix catalogs, but kind of the kind of tool specific. I mean, the brands. I mean, I hadn't heard of Festool prior to sort of joining the maker community, but I know they were around prior to that. But it's just they're not in my market. Yeah, I couldn't.
It's interesting, isn't it, that it is those things like the Domino or the track saw that are the things that have put Festool on the map across the pond.
Yeah.
And like Hilti is another perfect example of a European company that hasn't really ventured across the pond yet, even though they're a household name in industry and trade. If you need to, in the same way that Hoover is all vacuum cleaners, or Sawzall is all reciprocating saws, or things like that. And Skill Saw for circular saws. Hilti is either a big stonking SDS drill, or the thing that fires nails into steel beams.
Yeah.
If you're getting the Hilti gun or the Hilti drill, shit's going down. You're doing something big and heavy that nothing else will do it for.
Robbing Hatton Garden.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
See, I knew about Hilti guns decades ago because people used them in sort of the climbing world, or used to use them in the climbing world for sticking bolts into rock. Exactly, you had a Hilti gun, you could just stick instead of spending ages using a hammer and there's a kind of rotary type bit that you kind of you bang, and then you turn, then you bang again. You just keep turning and banging, turning and banging. Eventually, you can stick an expanding bolt into a piece of rock, and it takes ages to do that. And if you're hanging off a rope while you're doing it, it's just a pain. But if you can kind of pull out a Hilti gun and just go bang, and all of a sudden, then you just screw in the kind of the bolt, and there's the hanger in place, and you're ready to go and do the next one.
I suppose that again, for those not familiar with Hilti guns, It's essentially a nail gun that's powered by
22
It's a blank.
cartridge.
yeah. It's a bullet cartridge essentially.
Yeah.
It's an explosive shell, but yeah, that will fire nails into steel beams and into rock and things like that without. It's a proper nail gun in the real sense of the word.
You'll sometimes see them used on roads as well and sort of pavements for surveyors. Surveyors will use it for marking. Yeah, it's a permanent fix, not unlike a bit of paint, which come off if you need a permanent positioning marker for a survey.
Yeah, it's for putting datums in. Yeah, seeing guys on site doing, putting up tray or bits of vent or things like that, and just up in the cherry picker up to like a big steel beam. And you see this big loud bang, and then there's a bit of steel hanging from another bit of steel. Hang on a minute, what?
What was that noise? What's that? Why is there two?
Yeah. Why is there a big dangly bit of metal that's fixed to a very, very solid, thick, heavy bit of metal? How'd that happen?
Yeah, or if you're the sort of person that used to sort of enjoy kind of climbing around girders in roofs, and kind of, why is there a nail through this? How did that nail get there?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you just put your hand on it. It's like, ow.
Ow?
Why ow? What? How? How ow?
Go home and get get a nail and a bit of metal and
that's not how this works.
That person must have been really strong and really accurate to get that nail.
How long were they hammering for?
Now you're kind of going to be in Kia. But I know you can get nails for wood, and I know you can get masonry nails. But if you've got some of those metal nails, you got
aisle 7.
Old nails are metal. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But I mean, you don't just bang bits of wood together, do you? To make I'm guessing because we've seen a few things that you've made, and you obviously go to EMF isn't just for kind of going back full circle on that. Isn't for people who just put bits of wood together.
It's for everyone. It's if you have it. Trying to think how to describe it. It's a hacker camp, so it's the whole
Nerdvana.
It's Hackaday, it's Make Magazine, it's all these different people who just want to make stuff all come together in a field with electricity, a working phone exchange that someone bought and was just like, if you've got an old rotary phone, put a phone in your tent. Yeah, it's just things like that. It's just and then it's not. There is music. So there was Look, Mum, No Computer, and Gasman, and the Meme Punks. In the evening, there's music, and then there's a nightclub scene on this area called Nullsec, which normally is themed to. This year, it was the whole theming of EMF was underwater, abyss, underwater outpost.
Nice.
And then Nullsec.
This was a great film.
Yeah. And then Nullsec was the sort of sea base, and you walked through the oil rig, which had propane flamethrowers on the top, which did the oil rig flame effect. And then you went through, and it's all themed nightclub, and there they've got art. It's an art exhibition space, a bar, and this big disco dance floor. And so you had DJs playing till 2 a.m, while there was a group of people who were explaining the battery cells, the prototype battery cells that they bought that used urine as an electrolyte, which they had which they were developing for third world countries, but had tested it places like Glastonbury to run the lights of the toilet set. So like,
fantastic.
so you had them chatting away there, and then you had the Minitel, like the French Minitel art scene in the 80s, like people working to bring that back using old Minitel devices to recreate and make digital art that has sort of been lost through time. And then throughout the day there's just talks, and then you have so like hack spaces and maker spaces will go there and create like what is essentially a village, but it's like so everyone from a certain, like Northampton has their Northampton Hackspace Village, which is basically just like, it's an area where they're sort of guaranteed that everyone from Northampton Hackspace will meet up and pitch their tents, and then they'll do talks, like they'll do workshops there for people coming, and then do talk, like if you live near Northampton, it's sort of like an outreach area. So like so Make It had at Maker Central, and
I mean, most people who listen to us are probably familiar with, either by having been or have seen enough on sort of social media of Maker Central. I mean, particularly, I mean, Maker Central, it does tend to kind of hit Instagram quite hard, I think, and YouTube. But maybe I'm not following the right people on Instagram to find kind of much about EMF, but I know that EMF tends to get talked about more on Twitter.
Yes.
And I think I've kind of, part of my kind of trying to think about how the makers community works and fits together and all the different parts of it. I very much can see that there's the YouTube sort of balloon, there's an Instagram balloon, and there's usually quite a big crossover between them. There's a Twitter kind of balloon, and there's a bit of crossover, all three, because there are people who do use kind of all three of those medias. But then I kind of look at things like the types of making it tends to go on. And although I see kind of all types of making on Instagram and YouTube, I tend to think of Twitter as more the kind of, like talk about Make Magazine and Hackspace Magazine, the kind of, they're packing bits of electronic and plastic together, and not really, you don't find many wood turners, for example, on Twitter. Or kind of actually just, wood junkies. You don't find the kind of, the wood butchers on Twitter as much as you find, but you find the kind of, people who are into electronics, the people who are into robotics, the people who are into digital arts, the people who are into, taking old telephones and making them work with the Raspberry Pi. They're all across Twitter and the like. And I kind of get the impression that EMF, which again tends to, I see more about EMF on Twitter than I do elsewhere, is kind of more of that style of making, the creating things from junk, the creating electronic things, integrating old technology with new technology, reinventing old technology to do things with, say, the internet, rather than Maker Central had some of that. There was Make Gosport, and there was
Telford
Makerspace, and there were a few kind of, obviously there were people like the Ghostbusters, people I thought more of as cosplayers there. There were some of those electronics, but there was a much more of the kind of, here's a bunch of chisels, and here's how we make things. Here's resin. Here's, I mean, and then you had people like Matt Denton and James Bruton were, and the robots were at Maker Central. So it kind of crossed a lot. So perhaps for people who maybe are familiar with Maker Central, how does it relate to EMF? Would somebody who kind of is just a general maker, has a bit of a wood shop in their garden, maybe plays around with a bit of metal now and again, probably doesn't do a whole lot of electronics. How would they find somewhere like EMF?
How would they? This year probably they would, unless this year they probably have less in, like, if they weren't into coding or how coding works or stuff, if they were just like not, if they were like focused on wood and metal work, they might not like the talks there. So there was talks on like building a copper phone exchange on in a field, anti-surveillance knitting.
Oh, you've got to tell us. You've got to give us the heads up on that. Anti-surveillance knitting. Sure, Ellen, like, about this one.
Yeah.
The talk on anti-surveillance knitting, it was someone who gave a talk about could they use traditional knitting techniques to pattern out and knit. There was, that came out in 2018, an art group designed and printed, I think it was called Superface. It's basically, it was a shawl, it was a fabric design pattern that would basically give as many false positives for facial recognition as possible.
Ah.
I remember seeing a 3D print type thing of that.
Yeah. And it this person basically did a talk around basically the history of knitting, because in the First and Second World War, people would knit Morse code into socks and then post it to like back to the government. So you'd have a little old like French granny sat looking out of her window watching troop movements from the German troops, knitting just like 3 garrisons of panzer divisions have turned up.
Ah, yeah.
And so it was during the Second World War, the British actually had a ban on shipping socks, shipping specifically hand knitted garments out of the country for fear of basically someone is knitting Morse code into this jumper, into this sweater, and it might have troop movements in.
I wonder if that was also maybe used to send messages into some of the prisoner of war camps.
Yeah, most likely.
Because there were some very clever things happened to that. Kind of getting information in, getting tools in.
What's one of the fascinating ones my fiance told me about? RAF buttons, like buttons on an RAF pilot's uniform, were magnetized.
Yes.
So you could sit it on a piece of cork. Yeah. You could take the button off, sit it on a cork, or sit it on a leaf, and it would naturally want to point north.
Yes, and it didn't look like a survival compass that they would integrate into other things, so it'd be still kept. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like someone, because there are no. It's like where Maker Central is sort of like amalgamation of like, it's more like a comic book convention. So there's sort of like the trade people selling you stuff, and then there's the talk. There's the like talk section, and then there's the artist zone where you see like James and Matt and the Hacky Racers. Maker Central is basically just it's just like an artist thing, so you can walk around.
Make a con sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah. You can walk around, and you can walk around and see some of the art exhibitions that are going on, and like, or you can jump into any of the talks. But I've lost my train of thought.
So would EMF be a bit more like was going to say, is it a bit more like a Maker Faire than Maker Central? I've been to the mini Maker Faire in Brighton years ago when it was still running, and there weren't any trade stands.
Yeah, there's more. It's more. There's work.
Just people showing the things that they do and the things that they make, and there were talks.
Yeah,
there weren't anyone. There wasn't anyone trying, apart from food, because everyone wants food. There wasn't any kind of sort of trade stands at all. You couldn't go and go, oh, I'll just buy a new lathe while I'm here looking at people's craft making, or they've made a computer out of a razor blade and a tin can.
Yeah. There's the three main things, like, well, there's more than three, but like the two key things that are offered like by EMF are the workshops and the talks. And then the villages bring their own things. So there's one village that offers Maker Fairs is like have a go at soldering. And they set up a giant bus with a massive like awning over the top of it with just like 30 soldering stations, and a group of volunteers are just there. Like, go to a little thing, get a really simple, or if you're more advanced, like a more advanced badge that you can then sit down and follow the instructions and solder. And there are people who are just there, and if you're struggling, they'll come over and, oh, would you like some help, and then give you tips and stuff. And then there's workshops where people will one year there was someone who like carve your own Viking beer mug, like do carve your own like horn mug, like do all the intricate carving on it, or
that's not gonna be a quick one.
No. Or like how to make a titanium spork. So there are things that people who are into woodworking stuff may come and see. And there's like a blacksmith on site who does have a go day, has it like half an hour taster sessions. And it's just somewhere you can go and talk to someone. Like, everyone there wants to talk to you about what they're doing. You can walk up to anyone. Like, there was a person who bought a Hammond organ with them. Literally, me and Amy were like walking around. I was just like, could hear organ. Like, we went to Northampton Hackspace's bar robot night because they've got a robot barkeeper. So you scan a QR code, and then you select what drink you want. And then they call out your number, and then the robot makes you a drink. It's quite And then Amy had a Long Island iced tea that was mostly Long Island and not a lot of iced tea. She was just like, she sipped it and went, "This is pretty much all alcohol. It's lovely." And then as we were walking like back towards the tent to see, I think it was like to go watch one of the musicians play, I was just sort of walked past. It's like, I hear organ music, and sort of like turned around the corner and just like looked into this tent, and there's a person with like a silent movie being projected onto a white gazebo, just playing along to Buster Keaton, and it's just like you bought an organ. It's like, yeah. And then basically it's like, do you want to have a play? And I was just like, all right. I can only play piano, but I'll give it a go.
So it sounds a bit more.
It's more like,
because for Maker Central, you've got that kind of 9:30 till 6, 9:30, 5:30, whatever time it finished on Saturday, and kind of 9:30 till 4 on the Sunday, and then the rest of the time is filled up with kind of just talking with your Maker friends, Maker community, and there isn't any kind of there isn't really any evidence of making, from anyone from the outside would look at it and go, oh, well, there's just a bunch of people who obviously know each other and into the same things, but there's no, unless you kind of can recognize T-shirts And so people are, oh, that's a maker T-shirt. Yeah, people aren't going to kind of necessarily go, oh, that's what I'm making. But the sound of it, EMF is more a case of you arrive on, was it Friday?
Thursday.
Friday till Thursday.
So you can arrive on Thursday, and then some of the more established villages like Milliways or the Milliways.
The restaurant.
Do they serve food?
Yeah, they serve, like, if you have one of their challenge coins, which I've got one from 2018. It entitles you to free food for the entire event.
Fantastic.
Like, and then there's like the contingency of the Scottish embassy, which is just like they're just like a load of lads just having a laugh, and they had Buckfast FM that they were broadcasting, just playing like Scottish music, and
drinking Buckfast.
Lots of Buckfast. It is like EMF 2018 was the first time I drank Buckfast because of the whole Brexit vote we had. They were offering like Scottish citizenship, and you could sit. It was all tongue in cheek, but you could sit down, take the Scottish citizenship test, which was all like, what is the national animal of Scotland? It's like unicorn, correct. What's wrong with haggises? They've got two short legs. You've got to chase them the other way up down a mountain and fall. It's like all stereotypical Scottish thing, all tongue in cheek. And it's just like, have you ever drunk Buckfast? No. It's like, here's some Buckfast, drink it. Yes. I just
love how Buckfast is kind of this Scottish thing. Yeah, it's made down in Devon.
And then
Foster's is not Australian.
It's not lager either.
All clever marketing. It's like, because all the talks, Hackers on Planet Earth in New York and CCC in Germany and May Contain Hackers in the Netherlands, all the talks are done. You propose your talk idea. So whereas Maker Central, they approach different notable people in making to give like an hour talk or demonstration of like the blind woodworker using the new record power it's basically, if you have an idea, when they call for proposals, you could go, I wish to do a talk on the history of pole lathes. So it's EMF is what you want to get, like, give to it and get out of it, because it's all voluntary. So you could make it more, it could become more Carpenter Central if a group of like, if
you could set up a carpentry village.
Yeah. So you could set up a carpentry, like, green woodworkers could go and set up 30 pole lathes, or not 30, like 10 pole lathes, and teach people how to use a pole lathe over the course of like 2 hours. It's like turn a candlestick in 2 hours with.
So it's more people wanting to be there to give to it rather than being asked to be there for other reasons. Sort of thing.
It's the quintessential free trade of knowledge. It's like, if you want to learn something or you want to give your knowledge for free, you can do it. And
sounds really awesome, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's a shame it's only every other year. Isn't it?
Biannual.
Yeah.
Just sad. But there are other. There's like this Chaos Communication Camp in Germany, which is held. There's one held at New Year's, and there's one held biannual, because CCC and Hackers on Planet Earth normally take place on the same weekend. because they have on occasion done like cross transmissions. Like they'll have a key speaker talking for both events at the same time. It's a bit and yes, there are. So my partner went to a talk about how the British train network's computer system is like, it's not broken, but because
not fit for purpose.
Yeah, it's because the technology for it was designed in the 80s and 90s. Like the back end of it is so antiquated, and it's made itself hacker proof by just being so old, because people don't. It's just like. So the guy giving the talk was just like, if you've got old train tickets, because every single station in the country is given a binary number, like a binary registration about what train station. So like Waterloo is number one, and then it just sort of spreads out from there. So every single station, and basically at the moment he's trying to map what station has what registration to see if there's some sort of correlation, like if there's a region, a certain bit registry of the binary code registers it to a region, and then
so a bit like a postcode,
like postcode, yeah.
And he's saying it's one of those things. It's just it's amazing. It's still going to this day. By how it's just it's going to get to a point where people can't, if they lose the manual, people are just going to go we don't know how it works. It just does the thing, and we don't turn it off just in case it doesn't turn back on. Okay, everyone agree to that.
It sounds like a lot of other very, very old systems as well.
I was going to say, I bet it's probably programmed in Fortran or Cobble or something like that.
And the best
sounds cobbled together.
If you want to listen, EMF have a YouTube channel where you can. They haven't published this year's yet, but every at the end of every EMF, it's the same as DEF CON, Hackers on Planet Earth, CCC. They put, unless there's caveats given by the person giving the talk, they put all the talks up on YouTube, available to watch freely. So there's a couple of talks that I missed this year where it's just I wanted to go see that, so I'm going to wait until it's
I was going to ask, what talks did you go to?
So I went to the one about copper telephone system, because I'm a bit of a rotary phone nerd. I think there's four rotary. There's definitely 2 rotary phones in my lounge, and there's 2 touch tone phones, and then there's two rotary phones under my desk at work that I've just had delivered. Because I have a weird plan formulating for a project at the moment for work. So I went to that one. I went to. I have them all favorited because I went to quite a lot. It was basically every day, we're just bouncing from tent to tent. So there's 3 main stages that you could go to, and then there is there was all the villages, some of the big, Northampton, the maths village and all that. They also did miniature, sometimes talks or sometimes workshops. So if it wasn't big enough for a main stage talk, they'd have lightning round talks. So if you had a small 5-minute, if you wanted to chat about something but you couldn't talk for half an hour about it, you could still do a short half an hour chat about it.
Or a bit like the way TED Talks, there's 2 different lengths of TED Talks.
Yes.
So the standard one is 18 minutes, if I remember rightly. But then there's the shorter ones, which I think are 8 or 9 minutes, or even maybe 5 or 6. So there's the kind of the full length ones, and then there's the shorter ones. Yeah, that sounds cool.
So I've pulled up my list. So Friday, one of the things I missed was the first two I missed. Well, they were both at the same time, and I missed them. It was 2,500 nerds, one pathetic robot. One is like, fill your home with obsolete technology, rare book collecting 101. which my partner went to go and see, and she was like, it's very good.
So I'd argue books are obsolete. They're not obsolete.
They're not. I have.
Never will be.
I love collecting old, like, woodworking magazines and old, like, they're called I think they're called the Amateur Mechanic. The collection of 5 I have, like, literally behind the computer, that have like, go through them. It goes from like resoling your shoe to like building a house, and then silvering your own mirrors. And it's just like, it's just a book on like how to do whatever you want. It's just like, you never wanted to silver your own mirrors, but here's how you do it. And you go, well, maybe one day I do want to silver my own mirror.
I grew up with a set of those at the home, and I don't know what happened to them. I don't have them now, and I so wish I did.
Someone got rid of them to save you from yourself, Andy.
I don't know. I don't know, but yeah, I don't have them. But yeah, I grew up reading books like that. You know, I was kind of pre-teen.
What else? An Engineer's Guide to Grief. That was quite a good talk. That was about the talker basically their partner died 15 years ago. That was basically how they, as an engineer, dissected their grief through, basically looked at their grief as an engineer, going like, well, what do I need to do? Like, figuring out, like, going,
turn it into an engineering problem.
Yeah.
And find that engineering solution.
Saying like, there isn't a perfect engineering solution to grief, but you can look at the problem as an engineer and figure out what steps you need to take outside of that to solve the problem. And then there's one, what remains. This is Rupert Calendar. It's like, what remains, stories from a radical undertaker. He's a gentleman who he became a radical undertaker because he set himself up as an undertaker with, like, because you don't need a license. So he just one day just turned around and went, I'm an undertaker. And then like, someone trusted him enough to be like, can you take care of my deceased relative? And he went, yes. And he's just like, and he's like Caitlin Doty, the Ask a Mortician on YouTube. He's someone who is fighting against like big funeral. So like I mean, it's worse. It's worse in America, but so the Dignity Group in the UK buy local funeral homes, but will keep their name. But then it's being
internally franchised almost, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, you sell our products, but you sell them as your funeral home type thing. And so it's just like, and then upsell and all that sort of stuff, and like why funerals have become so expensive. And it's basically like Rupert and Caitlin, they're basically saying like, you can have the funeral at home. Like, if you want to, you can do it all yourself. Like, here's how you, and like explaining it. And he's written a book about it's basically his autobiography about his like how he started this undertaking business from basically just going like, I'm going to try it, and now he's set up a period, like it's a, can't remember where it is, but it's basically when you're cremated, a small amount of your cremains can be set into a brick, and he's him and it is, what band is it? There is a band, can't remember the band now, but basically you have your remain, like the brick of the person, and you have like their name on it, and it's being placed into this giant pyramid that's being built. So it's every like, you can have, everyone comes and places the brick of their deceased person, and basically the plan is to have like this ever growing pyramid of like remembrance, rather than having like a graveyard. It's just like, this is how we're going to allow, like, one method you can remember this person, by becoming a part of this community of like pyramid.
I'm sure someone's bound to suggest a very macabre version of Jenga.
Oh, make a Jenga with
Make a Jenga 2023. Yeah. Oh no,
the DigiGurdy, an electronic MIDI-enabled hurdy-gurdy project.
Oh wow!
That was given by the inventor of the DigiGurdy, and it's basically, it was just him going like, I wanted to learn the hurdy-gurdy, so I built the laser cutter one myself. Then I realized I couldn't play it, so I had to learn how to play the hurdy-gurdy. But I didn't want to be like that person next door in a block of flats, just sort of trying to learn to play the hurdy. Yeah.
Because it's not a particularly pleasant sound when you're getting it wrong, because it's
No.
sort of,
Yeah.
It's amazing when you get it right, but it's still a very, very
It has that
distinct,
drone-like
sound.
nature the bagpipes have.
And yeah, and he basically is just like, I'm an electrical engineer. I'm going to build my own MIDI controller in the form of a hurdy-gurdy, and like started off with just like the drone would play itself, and then he just did all the buttons, and then was just like, he posted it online, and everyone went, "It'd be nice if you had the handle then, though." So he designed the handle, and now there's this entire open source DigiGurdy community making and improve, and it's just like, it's a 3D printed custom digital hurdy-gurdy that is just a MIDI controller running off a Teensy that you can just
I mean, I'm going to have to investigate this.
You're just like, I must buy. You've done what I did and said to Amy after the talk. I was just like, I want a DigiGurdy, and she was just like, of course you do. It's like,
well, I
yes.
made I did the I can't remember what it's called now, but the Hovelin, yeah, the 3D printed violin for my daughter. And I keep threatening to, because like the only musical instrument that my dad doesn't have is a hurdy-gurdy. I keep threatening to get the laser cutter one for him.
So the company that, the guy who designed the laser cut hurdy-gurdy has now done a collaboration with the guy who's designed the DigiGurdy. So he's designed the sort of DigiGurdy enclosure. So it's basically the right proportions of a hurdy-gurdy, but with the DigiGurdy like architecture inside it.
Yeah.
So someone at some point is going to have to do a Theragurdy to just have some sort of theremin hurdy-gurdy crossover for just kind of waving your hand around for
the noise or the drone.
Yeah, to get the drone. Yeah.
Well, surely it's less sort of rotation. It's sort of just like pulsating your hand back and forth.
Yeah.
To, like, get the tremolo of the drone. What was it? This is good. I saw. Have you ever heard of Nervous Squirrel?
No.
One of his most famous things is the Aero record player advert. Whereas
Okay.
it was an advert for Aero. It's basically a record player stuck its horn into the molten chocolate, and then
Yeah.
the sound of it creates the bubbles, and it's just like, so he he engineered that and how that worked, and he gave a talk about how to turn how to basically do what you love and get paid for it, and how to go about that. It's just like understanding the pitfalls from someone who experienced it. So he was talking about how it's like you can normally tell in the first conversation whether someone's serious about a project or they're just trying to get you to do something for free or for exposure, or they're just testing the waters to see if if you might be interested in a future project, but they're seeing how you'll react to something really outlandish, so they can ask you something a bit easier, and how to cost that, and how to cost it and how to time it, and figure out understanding building in buffers for your projects. So if you know that wiring a load of festoon is going to take you a day, it's just give yourself 2 days, because something could go wrong. And if you've only given yourself a day, and then you've got to go to the client and go, something went wrong and I can't hand it to you on time, they could get angry with you, and then you lose that client. It's just it was things, stuff like that, is how to find clients and how to talk to people and gauge what they're after, and how to cost it in such a way that is beneficial for you but also guarantees that you will get the work.
Yeah, I think that's one of the mentalities that a lot of people struggle with, is that either that feeling that every job you pitch for, you have to get. So quite often they'll undersell themselves to get the job.
Yeah,
they might not even want the job, but it's that feeling of failure of not being accepted for your quote, almost.
Yeah, or it's a client you really want to work for, so you're just I will undersell myself to get this job.
Yeah,
but if I don't get it, then I'll be sad.
And it can be tricky as well if you're starting out in a business, to kind of go, oh well, I really need the work, therefore I will undervalue myself.
Yeah.
And this isn't necessarily the thinking that's going on, but I'll do it for £10 an hour. And even though my time and my experience and my abilities are worth £50 an hour, because I want that work. And of course that's dangerous as an individual, but it's dangerous also for the community of people also trying to work. It's that kind of element of you go to a craft fair and you want to sell your bowls that you've paid good money for blanks, you've turned them out, you've got really high quality finishes, there's hours of work into each one, you're selling them for £150 for a good sized fruit bowl from a not too exotic a wood, and there's a retired gent three tables down who's selling almost identical stuff for £15, because he doesn't mind as long as he makes the price of the table that day and gets some of the money back towards his blanks. He doesn't really want
someone
to make any
gave
money.
Someone gave him the wood, and he's had the tools for 20 years, and
it's a hobby for him. That's the same with weird transition. No, it's the same with sort of beekeeping. So I like I help my tutor out with beekeeping. We go to a market, and there's been occasions where because it's a organic food market, there's been an organic farm that also produces their own honey, but because it's not what they're there to sell, it's sort of just like a side business. They're selling it for essentially
Cheap.
cost. Yeah.
Mm.
So they're selling it. So there have been they've now been, there's basically because my tutor only goes every once a month. There's a beekeeper, Eric, who goes every other week to sell because he has 200 hives. it's he is a like full-time beekeeper. He's just like from late March to September, October, depending on the weather. He is out every day inspecting, and he's got several sites. But he had to go and explain to this organic farm. It's just like, I know you've bought the bees and you're selling it. You're selling it to cover the cost of the jars and stuff and the frames that your bees have put on the honey. But you can't undersell everyone else, because you're doing it for fun, and the other people are beekeeping businesses. They are the beekeeping stall in this market. It's shared between, I think it's 8 different beekeepers over the month, but it is just they've all taken their pricing from the UK average of what they should be making based on the cost of bees and the cost of all the frames and the foundation and the jars and everything, and the wear and tear on the extractors and stuff, it's just that it's the whole thing of just they set up and then they don't make the table money to justify them coming out and selling the honey.
Yeah, stuff like that's frustrating. I've seen that. And the other one frustrates me at kind of craft sales is where it's supposed to be kind of homemade stuff, and you get somebody who turns up and they're clearly selling, the one of these sort of multi-level marketing scent type things, or they're obviously buying stuff from China, and at best they're putting their own label on the bottles, and it's not homemade or handmade. Yeah, and then they're next to somebody who's kind of literally acquired bottles from the local pub, drill a hole in it. It's like lighting it, which look very nice, and it's a very good thing, but it's definitely something that's been made.
Yeah.
As opposed to the kind of somebody who's kind of got very swish marketing, which if you go to another craft sale 50 miles away, 100 miles away, you'll see exactly the same product being sold with exactly the same marketing with a slightly different name on it.
Yeah.
Or even the same name.
It's like some of the stalls you see at Jubilee Market now in Covent Garden. So walking through there, and it's sort of there's, I don't know what it's like the leather bound, I was going to say goth, but it's all they're leather bound with they're a leather bound book, notebook, but they've got goth or Lord of the Rings aesthetic to it.
Yeah,
but it's all but it's still there's been a number of times when I first saw them at Jubilee Market, and then I went somewhere else, and it was that, like you said, it's just like I then saw them at another fair, and it's just like, hang on, you're not the same company, and it's like, but you're saying these are all handmade by you.
And they're handmade by someone, and then they're hand shipped over, and then they're hand laid out on the stall, and
it's my
it's the way it's gone. I mean, Etsy used to be just people handmade stuff, homemade things, and now it's the people who handmake things are often struggling because they're trying to compete against things that are mass produced, and it's the price is being driven down. Or you've got to include free delivery if you want to be able to get promoted, and so the price gets pushed down, and people. I'm not sure why anyone is still on Etsy.
It pushed my sister at one point, because she's a seamstress, was trying to sell. I had a really good idea for a product, and was in the process of like marketing it, and then got to basically was like, I'll start selling on Etsy, but it was this it was at the time where the mass produced stuff was sneaking in, and it's just like, so like I can't make these for the price they're charging.
Yeah.
Like, given like the cost of electricity, or the cost and the cost of like the material itself, because she's buying maybe 20 yards of the material to make the product, whereas these, like the mass produced places, are capable of buying at
2,000 yards.
Yeah. And yes, her product would last longer because it's like it's like it's made by a seamstress who's doing small batch production, whereas a lot of the stuff that
not producing 300 an hour.
It's someone who's actively making a good product rather than actively making the cheapest possible product, minimum viable product, isn't it? I think that's always going to be a struggle, though, I think, isn't it? It's, nobody wants to pay the cost of properly made stuff. Yeah,
it's as a maker, I've had, like, in the theatre, just people in the green room, like, having a cup of tea, going, "Oh, you make stuff?" And they go, "Yeah." It's like, I had once, it's like, "Oh, could you make me an oak bookshelf?" And I went, "Well, yeah." Like,
but do you really want to pay for an oak bookshelf?
Yeah, I was just like, "What is your budget?" And they were like, "Well, I've got £100," and I was like, "Well, I'll buy you a shelf."
I was going to say, unless you want a very small bookshelf for holding 3 or 4 recipe books on your kitchen countertop, not going to get the oak for £100 to make a proper size bookshelf.
It was one of these ladder, like the ladder against the wall bookshelf with steel side walls, and then live edge oak shelves, like 3-tiered things. And I was just like, I could make that. It would cost you about £500 to £600, and like 2/3 of that is the material cost. And they were like, I could just go to big box store and buy one for like 50 quid. And it's like, well, go there.
Then go to big box store and buy for 50
quid. Yeah. Go to the home of the meatball. That's
It's just that, it's the amount of times people have asked me to make them something, and then I tell them, like, even a mate's rate price, and they go, well, I can just go to this, I can just buy it for cheap at this shop. And you go,
so why are you asking me to make it for you? Why are you asking me to spend my time? It's like, that's the thing, isn't it? Especially with mates asking you to make stuff. If they're, like mates who you hang out with in person, rather than, it's a bit different, like the internet friends and stuff. But, if you've if you actively hang out with someone in an evening or something, and you often, because life gets in the way, you often then struggle to both find times where you can both meet, so you meet less and less frequently. And then if they ask you to make something and on the cheap for mates rates, it's like you do realize that by you asking me to make you this thing, you're going to see me even less, because eating into my time that you would normally see. So
yeah,
it's a no-win situation there as well. I'll come and help you assemble the IKEA furniture when you've gone and bought that, but
yeah.
It's like I made for a friend. She had she'd inherited her grandmother's cake icing syringe.
Yeah.
Don't know what they're called. It's like you fill it. It's like a cake. It's an icing corking gun, essentially. It's how I describe it. It's like an icing corking gun. It's just, but she basically she had all the nozzles from her grandmother's one, but like the whole plunger assembly of it had just collapsed. So she was like, well, I've got my one, but all the nozzles on my grandmother's ones are a better shape and they're better. So she was like, oh, could you 3D print me an adapter? So she sent me all the measurements, and I sort of drew it up in 5 minutes, had it printing for an hour, and like sent it to her in the post. And she was like, oh, how much do you want for it? And I was just like, tenner? I don't know. Like, it's probably like 30 pence worth of filament.
Yeah.
For it, but it's I was just like, you're a good friend, and it's just like it wasn't a difficult thing for me to build, because all it was basically fusion a circle, cut a hole in it with a taper that's the same diameter of the nozzles you want to use, so you can use them. It's not a live edged oak bookshelf that will take me 3 months. Will take me 2 weeks to make and finish, and you'll still.
Yeah.
It's weird, isn't it?
People want IKEA prices, but they want the handmade custom quality. They don't go together. Goes back to the
Venn diagram, isn't it? Or
it's the
triangle.
Quick, cheap, or good.
Yeah,
you can only have two.
Yeah,
I'm saying like the IKEA, like I've basically one of my bookcases is now just a load of the IKEA wooden crates just stacked on top of each other and screwed together. It's just like, well, if I ever want to move house, rather than like boxing up all my books, I just take some screws out, and then they're already in boxes, and they just go in the wagon.
Turn them 90 degrees, and you're done.
Yeah, it's a good plan. I like that plan. Yeah.
But it's just like I like the design aesthetic of IKEA. I like the Scandinavian design aesthetic, but half of their stuff is made of cardboard with some laminate stuck over the top of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand that, and it's just like
it has its place. It has its place.
Absolutely.
I mean, when we first got married, our first wardrobe was a flat pack from B&Q. It was on offer. It was, I can't remember if it was like 30 quid. I mean, it didn't survive the first move, but it did a job. It was certainly better than the kind of fabric and wood kind of hanger rail with cover that had previously been used as a wardrobe. Yeah, I didn't have a wardrobe. Yes, but it's just like, it has its place. I mean, now we have. I mean, we've got built in our bedroom. We have one built-in wardrobe, and we have a solid pine, good, thick pine, not your cheap pine from B&Q type thing, but it's a solid pine wardrobe. It's huge. I mean, it's a big wardrobe. It's heavy. It comes apart into sort of 3 big parts for sort of moving, and it's solid. It's a lifetime piece. Yeah, it'll last forever. Yeah, we can pass it on to our kids. Yeah, can't do that with stuff from IKEA, really.
No. I think because I've got their beach folding table, and that's all solid. That I think that will last quite a while. But yeah,
I think so. I think some of their wood stuff is good. I mean, we've got a set of shelves in the kitchen. I've modified them slightly. They were wider apart, and I sort of brought them together, which we kind of it's for our mugs and tea and things like that. But the kettle, and it's all wood. It is wood, and they're okay. But yeah, it's
so there's an entire community around like the jerker desk that they discontinued years ago, and I bought one 15 years ago, maybe, if not more, and that's moved 2 or 3 times when I was in Warrington and Haydock and surrounding areas in the northwest, and then moved down to Bristol with me, and then moved up to Kettering with me. So that's still going strong. I was using that here for years, and now my daughter's using it. You know, it's that thing will outlast me probably, but it's basically just steel and then a steel frame, and then a load of kind of laminated chipboard stuck on the top. You know, it's easy to treat it well enough for it to, threads are gone on some of the bits, but you just tap them out with another bolt.
Yeah. This is you'll never see like a Kallax unit on Antiques Roadshow 2053.
No.
I don't know. You never know if it's still around. I think Antiques Roadshow. Imagine what we'll be watching then. Antiques Roadshow in 2053.
Okay.
That could be fun. I'll have to try and.
The screaming head.
Yeah.
This Nintendo Switch from 2021.
Yes, the sentient, the brain in a jar of Fiona Bruce, just still open.
David Dickinson won't look any different either from.
This time we moved on to our attention grabbers.
Well, I think it's as good a time as any, isn't it?
Yeah.
So Dom, what's been grabbing your attention lately? Well, it might be things you've been working on. Obviously, you've mentioned sort of bees, or things that you're going to be doing. I know you can't tell us about things that you're working on aren't public.
I can't. I can give you the name of the title and the synopsis of the play I'm really looking forward to in September, which is The Wonderful World of Dyssocia, which is it's Alice in Wonderland, and is it America McGee's Alice in Wonderland, the horror game, which took place in a mental asylum, and it's basically I think when was it? I think it's the 80s. It was originally put on. It's basically this character. The play starts like the opening of the play is character is tuning a guitar and just pitching up the string and just going, just keeping tuning up the string until it snaps, and then the door knocks, and then like the string snapping in the guitar is basically a symbol of her psyche breaking and her going into a dissociative state. And then it's the whole first act takes place in this mad world with like a singing polar bear and and like a car that turns into a plane and a hot dog stand, and it's all this like insane stuff that sort of happens around her. And then there's an interval, like there's a big climax at the end at the interval point. Then after the interval, it just comes crashing back to like a mental hospital, and it's then like her talking to her brother and telling him about this wonderful time she's had, and him explaining like what happened in the real world while she was missing. And it's just like, do you know what happened? And she's just like, oh, I had this amazing, I met this polar bear and stuff. And it's just like, yeah, there's bad things happen.
Yeah, I've just pulled up the website for it. It says at one point it's filled with insecurity guards, flying cars, singing polar bears, and wild goose chases.
Yes.
And there's a quote from Anthony Nielsen, the writer. It says, "If you like Alice in Wonderland, but there's not enough sex and violence in it, then Dystocia is the show for you."
Yep.
I'll link that. I'll link that in the show notes.
Nice.
Like it's a play. I missed out doing it at university when we did it, because we had the script as a reading prompt in my first year, and then we were going to do it in my second year, but I then went and did something else. And I was really annoyed because it was just like, I've always wanted to do this play because I read the script on the plane going on holiday, and read it in one sitting. It's just like I started reading it and was just like, oh, this is good. Oh, this is, and just like the plane landed and I'd finished the script and was just like, I really want to do this play. And yeah, it's an insane play, but it's just mad, and it's just, I'm really happy that like the artistic director got the rights to do it, because it's just like, yeah, I want to do this. What else am I? Yeah, I have just harvested with my tutor. He's harvested 60 liters of honey, which I can't like. Seriously, I've harvested about 20, and then I have lots and lots of cut comb, which is small box, like honey still in the honeycomb, just all boxed up. Which, yeah,
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Jamie, what about you? What's been grabbing your attention?
The loft. I've been actually. I've got to a point.
Still the loft.
It's still the loft. Well, I mean, we had the fun and games of the bath leak, and then we had shortly after that was in the cleanup of doing the bath, fixing that. We'd had to get under the dishwasher, so we'd drag the dishwasher out, and then something was wrong when we put it back. So when we ran the dishwasher then leaked. So I had to fix that yesterday. In and amongst all that, we also managed to break the plastic clips on the toilet seat. So when you try and lift the seat up, it just one side would kind of like pull itself out of the frame. So we fixed that today as well.
I fixed the toilet seat yesterday.
Yeah. And in and amongst all that, over the heat that we've had in the past few days, we've managed to get the last of all of the existing boards and all of the existing support structure and everything out of the loft ready. So this is the week. The two hottest days coming up this week is when the team of loft fitters are going to be ripping into the ceiling and in the landing and putting all their stuff in. So this will hopefully be the go ahead.
Good week. Yeah.
Yeah, so tired and warm and achy from patching up stuff that I could have done without patching up, basically. That has been very firmly in my attention. How about you, Andy?
Well, a good week in some respects. Exams all finished now. Both my kids who've had exams, last exam was on Friday.
Nice.
So all the exams this week went well, which is good. So that's that done. There's still a few kind of sort of schooly things to happen. Visits to a new school for the youngest starting tomorrow. There's a few of those lined up.
Is that for them to
elders.
go on to sixth form?
Going on to sixth form. Yeah, they're going on to sixth form. So they've got a place, but they haven't been to school. Never attended school. So it's like it's a completely different environment. It's the sixth form choice school is large. It's one of the largest schools in the county. So that's going to be an interesting experience. I think it'll be okay, but so we're going to get a bit of a slow integration. So we've got a visit tomorrow where they're kind of well, particular person it's just us, and then next week then there's a day for external students, and then the following week is 5 days of all the kind of potential sixth formers having lessons and things. So that's going to be good. So there's a few things like that happening, but hopefully other things can change. I started tutoring this last week, so I'm going to be picking up some tutoring. So I've started that. So I've kind of held off for a number of reasons, but one mostly being so I can actually focus on teaching my own children. I started that, and I'll probably start advertising for a few more shortly, probably before the summer holidays start. I've already had a couple of kind of tentative inquiries, one of which didn't go anywhere, and one that probably will, but it's only a conversation literally on dog walk. So that's that. Of course, we're exam marking starting this week as well. Again, first time I'm doing that. So that'll be nice, a nice, interesting bit of professional development. So it's a useful thing to do. Marking exams is actually quite a useful thing to do as a sort of a teacher. So getting into that. Other things this week, I noticed the Makers Waffle Instagram account went over 500 followers. So that's wow, sort of progressing slowly. Interestingly, Tales from the Tinkerage a couple of weeks ago passed 1,800 followers, which considering I haven't put a video out for over a year. I think it's over a year now. That's still kind of accruing people. So, but hopefully with exams done, homeschooling done, certainly from September, that's once the summer holidays are done, I will have hopefully a bit more time. And I'll be essentially home alone most of the time. So I'll be able to get on with things that I want to get on with. And there'll be a list of things I've got to get fixed and done.
Yes, the honeydew list.
So that'd be the thing. Otherwise, saw a good video this morning. DIY Perks. Matt from DIY Perks. A very good channel, very interesting channel. I do like sort of Matt's approach to things. He took a Sony PlayStation 5, which is quite a bulky, big thing, and he made his own version of it, which the main part of it was literally 2 centimeters thick. So he made a kind of a copper case that was kind of probably about the size of an A4 sheet of paper, about 2 centimeters thick.
Is this a slightly older video?
No, this is brand new.
New one?
Yeah, this is brand new. He's done a few with the PS5. But this one he was taking, he was just trying to make it as slim as possible. So he had to take there's a few compromises he had to make. The power, I'll give away one of them. The power supply, it's an external, like some of the older ones. So that thing, and it's an interesting video to watch. I won't spoil any more, but it's a good one to watch. It's about 20 minutes or so. What I really like about it is that it doesn't all go right.
Yeah, it is.
It goes wrong, and you see the frustration at times, and you see the solutions. Yeah, he does solve it. Yeah, I'll spoil that. And it's good, but it's interesting to see things go wrong and things not working the way that they should do, and then solving it. And for that, it's worth watching. It's not like some of the videos we see so much on YouTube where it's like, oh look, I've just done this thing. It only took me half an hour, it cost me $10, and it's working perfectly. When in reality, there was a team of 5 who took 3 weeks. 15 different attempts, but we don't see that. And there are loads of channels that are like that, where there's some of the bigger channels where there is kind of there's a team of people it's not just the kind of the star character you're seeing doing all the work. There's a bunch of other people who maybe don't want to be on video. Yeah, it's an act for some, and it's an exaggeration for others.
Personality,
yeah. So, but this is kind of it's he may have a team. I doubt it. I don't think he has. I've heard him talk before. I don't think he has a team, but it's nice to see things not.
It's nice to see the reality of of making a project.
Yeah, so it's worth watching just for that. And it's as typical for DIY perks. It's a beautiful piece of engineering. It really is. And without, there's some expensive aspects in do anything with PlayStation 5. It's expensive, but some of the stuff he does, it's more about kind of interesting engineering approach. Yes, the materials you're using are expensive, but the tools you're using aren't.
Well, that's one thing that I sometimes get a little bit. That's why I get a bit of a bee in my bonnet about. It is compromising on the process for using an expensive material on an expensive piece of hardware, but purposefully limiting yourself with cheap tools and a sort of kludged together process that you could use another tool for the job.
Yeah,
which I think sometimes is. I would sort of like him to have two separate approaches. Here's how you could do it properly.
Yeah.
If you're going to spend £500 on a thing and then another £300 worth of materials, use a tool that cost you £100 instead of a tenner.
Yeah.
If you're going to put 800 quid into a project, use proper tools. If you're going to do it as a 20 quid worth of project,
kind of
use
almost
the 20
projects twice.
Tools,
yeah, I'd like to see him do a project. Right, I'm going to use a CNC. I'm going to use a laser. I'm going to get this, and it's going to be absolutely spot on, perfect. But now I'm going to do it, and I might use different materials, but I might use the same materials, but I'm going to do it the slow and tedious way, and it's going to take more work to get the same level of finish because I've got to now take it through 3 stages of polishing rather than just giving it a wipe with a damp cloth.
I think when Colin Furze did that with his, was it his drift trike? He did
multiple iterations.
Yeah, he did like his original drift. He did the original drift trike, and then he did the no welder Ryobi grinder version of it, where he built the same thing, but when I only have these tools to work with.
Yeah, it's making it accessible then.
Yeah. And then
Colin Furze is a good shout, actually.
Yeah. It's explaining it like you don't have to have a CNC plasma cutter like I do.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing. It's not going to look as pretty as mine because I've got a CNC machine that I can
and you
cut
can
any
TIG weld
shape
all
I
the
want.
joints and
yeah. But you can make it. You can make it though.
I like that. I've seen it a couple of times where people have taken. I'm racking my brain, but I can't think of who else I've seen it. Colin's done it, but where there's kind of we've got this is the cheap way, this is the middle way, this is the expensive way. Yeah. If you've got all the bees knees, this is how you can do it. If you've got hand tools, this is what you can do. If you've kind of got you've got a reasonable workshop, but you haven't got access to CNC plasma or just a CNC, but you've got kind of a jigsaw, a bandsaw, rather than kind of doing it by hand.
I think Mateus used to do. I don't know if he still does it, but Mateus used to do like varying degrees of.
Yeah,
maybe it might be him. Maybe
and Izzy sometimes does stuff like that, and there's a few that will do similar things, and of course, Ben Ueda being as accessible as possible, and then pulling something ridiculous out of the bag with it.
Yeah. I mean that's one of his kind of sort of marketing points, isn't it?
Tenets of life,
kind of, Yes, I mean, there's stuff where he's done the spiral staircase, but yeah, it's like I'm going to use the
X-Carve.
the X-Carve. I was trying to remember which one he had. I was going to say work bee for a moment, but it wasn't the work bee. I'm going to use the X-Carve, and I'm going to cut these steps, and each step's going to be exactly the same because that's what we want and need for making this. But I'm also but now I'm going to make this. I'm making this really quite fancy sort of stuff, and all I'm doing is I've got a bunch of Ryobi tools.
Yeah.
And nothing particularly fancy. It's just I'm doing this with I've got a skill saw, I've got a jigsaw, I've got an impact driver and a combi drill.
Well, that's the same thing that Colin does. He's all accessible tools that you can just, for the most part. But a lot of the stuff that it's a conscious choice to use Ryobi because you can just go down the shop and buy another one.
Yeah,
it's that kind of thing. Colin is his episode 9 of his tunnel build was out this week.
Yes,
so that was a good video to watch. He took a different approach to it.
Yeah, he saw it was less like shots of tunneling, more explaining,
answering questions and stuff.
Yeah.
Explaining how to get planning permission for a tunnel system under your house.
The tunnel is already built.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. And I really appreciated that approach. To break out from that kind of monotony of the, I was just digging more stuff. It's, to take the time to actually answer the questions, I think was a good move by him there. Yeah,
I did like the fact that he's going to do a long form version as well.
Yeah, real time digging.
Yeah, I'm just going to do. I think it's it's slightly alluded to. Basically, it's just like it might be a live stream where he just sets up the camera.
Just goes for
it. Just press go, but doesn't have like a monitor to see the chat log. It's just like I'm just going to be digging a tunnel, and you can watch me do it.
Yeah, which it's typical genius of Colin because loads of people will watch it.
Yeah,
I mean, he's what 11 million subscribers now. 12 million.
He's almost at 12, so it's another fireworks extravaganza. I love it. Every single time he gets, I think one time he did
every million, wasn't
it?
Yeah. 1 million. I think I don't know if it was like a million or it was just like a health and safety one he did, where basically he got all the fireworks and like one of the crappy vans he's got, like one of the beaters. He just put all the fireworks inside this panel van, shut all the doors, and then set them all off. And it was just like, let's see what happens if the fireworks go off inside the van with it closed. Oh, it's a bad thing.
Very, very bad thing.
most of his things with fireworks are bad things.
Yep.
I mean, have you ever seen the Tom Scott video where he lets off? I think it's like a 15 or 20 minute firework display show in 3 seconds. And it's just like it sort of has a camera shot of like the fireworks going off, and then in the end credit sequence is basically the facial reaction of all the people behind the camera, and you just see them. They're just like, it's a look of like amazement and mild horror, just like that's a lot of fireworks all going off at once.
Yeah, so some friends of mine are pyrotechnicians, and they, because a lot of fireworks shows that you go to now are all electronically fired.
Yeah,
and because these guys are all high-level technical engineers, design engineers, for them to do an electronic display is taking the fun out of it. So they hand wire everything and do the whole they do the whole fireworks show hand lit. So they'll usually have a team, 3 or 4 of them, running around like lunatics with just sticks that are on fire, manually setting all these fuses. And one of them recently, they'd filmed part of it sort of behind the scenes as well, for their own personal enjoyment. And one of my friends, she knelt down on an ember, so it ended up like burning right in the knee. But it's just that absolute lunacy of seeing them, with because they're not using rockets, they're using mortars.
Yeah.
So these tubes that are like right by their face as they light this instant fuse, and then it just, straight in front of literally centimeters away from their face. And it's ridiculous to see a bunch of super technical, essentially
highly skilled pyrotechnic.
Professional nerds running around with flaming sticks, setting off explosions right in front
I
of their
would recommend
faces.
to people if I don't know if it's running this year. I knew it stopped during the human malware. I don't know if it's going on again. But I used to live in Plymouth, and Plymouth used to, I hope they still do, host the fireworks World Championships.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would the fireworks would be installed on barges in the harbour, and so everyone would be kind of on. People would watch from the kind of the kind of citadel and from the harbour walls, and see these amazing displays over a series of nights. It's normally in August, I think kind of second or third week of August. I'm not sure. I'll try and look it up and remember it. But it's kind of, if you're ever down in the southwest of England at that sort of time of year, it's worth taking a trip to Plymouth for the evening to kind of watch one of those. We used to. My auntie-in-law has a house and with a sun terrace. And if you go out into the sun terrace, you get this amazing view of the kind of just the right spot of the harbour to see it from a distance. So
Nice.
without all the crowds, benefit of a inside loo, and you don't get quite the effect, but it's spectacular. It really is spectacular, and it's a great history. There was a technician I had at the time I was there. He was involved in the counting side of a successful attempt, if I remember rightly, to break the world record for the most number of rockets launched at the same time. I've got a figure in my head, and I can't remember if it's right, but I think it was something. The number in my head is 150,000, but that seems just too big. So, but it was definitely thousands of rockets launched at the same time. But I can't remember. It might have been 15,000 or 1,500 even, but it was a huge number launched at the same time. Lots. I think we had like 3 or 4 duds out of the entire lot. There was a guy teaching at the university there in the chemistry department, or he was a chemist in the chemistry department. Professor Roy Lowry. He basically a bit of a nutter. He had a bit of a viral thing on YouTube, going back for a few years now, because he was one of the first people to record on YouTube and release, putting a. If you take a half-liter carbonated drink bottle, fill it up with liquid nitrogen, put the lid on it, drop it into a garbage can, a bin, and then fill the bin with 1,000 or so ping pong balls, and then step back briskly, and boom, and you get a lot of ping pong balls flying all over the place. He kind of had a viral hit with that.
I remember that video.
Got taken down for a while, but it's still available in various places, and a few other people have repeated it. And I think actually it was repeated again in a slightly larger space. 'Cause the first time he did it was in not the biggest of spaces. It wasn't a classroom; it was a hall, but it was a small hall.
Loud bang.
Very large bang. Yes, liquid nitrogen's fun. I miss playing with that. I think on that note. Dom, where can people find you if they want to kind of follow you online, or follow us?
Probably best find me online under Sneak Dante on Instagram, where I post not that often, but when I do post, it's normally things I'm making for theatre. like odd props or fire effects at the moment. But yeah,
Cool. Oh,
Nice.
thank you. It's been a fascinating.
Thank you for
chat.
joining us.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
I've enjoyed this evening. It's been good.
Yeah,
So, glad it happened. Yeah, we had a good chat last week about fashion mostly.
yeah.
I thought when we started talking about boots earlier, it was venturing back into last week.
Yeah, we did mention vines last week, didn't we? But,
Yeah,
we did.
Yeah. We've got some guests lined up for the next few weeks. So I've been doing a bit of guest sort of lining up. So we've got a few lined up.
Yeah.
I think for the best part of a month. I think.
It looks like. Well, I mean, coming up, we've got a pre-record.
Yep.
Because I'm not going to be here, and then in a month's time we've got a big one. It's going to be messy.
Yeah.
And that's all we're teasing.
On that note, we'll see you all next week.
Thank you again, Dan.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Dom.
Cheers.
Bye,
folks.
folks.